Welcome back to the Parent Experience Podcast. I'm Pastor Kayla here with my co-host.
I'm Robert.
And we're stoked to be back for another episode and give you a good pep talk in the middle of your month. And we are joined here tonight with our guest, Miss Amber Reineke. Amber, do you want to say hi to everybody?
Hello, everyone.
Amber was our guest speaker at FX this month. This month we're talking about gratitude.
Gratitude.
We're talking about how we can have gratitude and what God's heart is for gratitude. So we're talking about this all throughout the month in our kids ministry. And yeah, it's a great topic because Thanksgiving is this month.
Yes, the first thing that I think about is the Brandon Lake song, Gratitude. How can I express all
I was
my
thinking
gratitude?
like I thank God.
Oh, that
like,
one's a good one too. Yes.
I don't.
I thank God.
It's like new.
Yeah,
but
it's kind of new.
Yeah.
Not really that new, but it's a good one. Yeah, listen to it, after this podcast.
That's right.
After the podcast.
But also, can we just really fast say, Amber, what's your favorite Thanksgiving food? Like, what are you most looking forward to? I mean, we just got to start with it because it's Thanksgiving month,
I know. My mom's rolls are, I love them. So I would say, but we have always so much food. We have so much food. Like every year we think, let's bring it, like we have to just cut it back. And every year it's the same thing. We have so much food. I blame that on my sister. She loves to make food.
It's better than the opposite.
You're right.
Not enough
You're right.
food.
No, you're
That's
right.
true. We started this thing where we mix like all the leftovers together. And we make like Thanksgiving casserole is what we call it. But it's like turkey, mashed potatoes, green beans, corn. Like you just like pile it up and then you lather gravy over it all.
It's
amazing.
It's good. I'm sure it's good.
It's a fun way to rename leftovers.
Thank you.
There you
That's
go.
what it is.
There you go.
Okay,
It's
got
creative.
Yeah,
I love
it's creative. Well, hey, we're here with Amber. We're not going to talk about Thanksgiving food this whole episode. But Amber, would you tell us a little bit about yourself, your family, what you guys do? Let our listeners know what you're up to.
Sure. So I have two boys, Isaac, who's 16, and Elijah, who is 10. I have a sophomore and a fifth grader. So the last year in in elementary school. So that's kind of, how you reach, you kind of, it's at a point in time, right? That this is my last elementary year after so many. I work as a CFO, a chief financial officer, and part owner in a couple businesses. And yeah.
So Amber is a boss lady. That's what a boss mom, a boss lady, like all the little
She's getting it
decorations.
done.
She's getting it done.
She's getting it
Yeah.
done.
Well, Amber, you shared so beautifully tonight. We loved having you at FX, and we just wanted to jump into the conversation a little bit more about how to help raise our kids to be grateful. Right? Like we see God has done so much for us, right? We can see it in the Bible. We see it in our own lives. He's done so much. Sometimes we don't recognize it, though, and we can tend to not have grateful hearts. So we want to raise our kids to have grateful hearts. And I was wondering if you'd share a little bit. You talked right at the beginning of the conversation tonight about how your parents raised you and about their priorities. Could you share a little bit about that with us?
Yeah, so I was raised in a pastor's home. So it naturally kind of led to it's just a unique perspective as far as you get exposed to just when you're, especially it wasn't a big church. It wasn't as big as it is now. It's this church, but it was much smaller, so much more intimate. And we knew the families in a much more intimate way. So when a family would go through things, we as a family also felt that. It was very... so I was exposed to just different things and watching my parents minister and care for those people going through the different things. But in the process of that, one thing that stood out to me as I think back is I always knew my parents loved me. I always knew my parents loved my sister. But even more importantly and more clearly, I knew they loved God. There was no question that God was first. Maybe it came naturally because we were a pastor's home, and so much of life revolved around the church and God and serving God, but it was just who they were. It's the values that they lived. It's who they were as people. So they had the structure right. They had God, they had each other, and then they had us. And we knew our place. We knew, I never felt like I was in the wrong place. I always, it was a safe place. It was a good place. And I feel like it helped me as I became a parent. You realize when you're a parent how much harder it is to do than to say. Like,
yes,
you have good intentions, but then you realize, wow, it's hard not to get these little people, have them to rule the life or rule the world, and you have to make them be aware that God is number one. He will trump everything, and He has to have this place in our world, in our lives, so that they understand their place in the world. So,
yeah, that's really good. That's really good. And I think that that's the great place to start out, because it has to start with our faith. We have to, as parents, you have to model for the kids what it looks like to live those Christian values and to live those Christian virtues. So I think that's great that your parents modeled that for you. So then how have you been able to, as a parent, how do you, what are the things you do to help model and promote the virtue of gratitude for your kids? What does that look like for you?
Simple things sometimes.
Because I know you do it perfectly, obviously. You've never...
As I said earlier, we are a work in progress. But I think it's little things. And I'm sure you guys have heard actually Paul says it, so it's scriptural. It's also just kind of a general idea that not everything is permissible, not everything is beneficial, right? And I think there's a point in there's a lot of things I could give my boys,
sure,
that I choose not to give them because it's not beneficial.
Yeah.
And I think because what I want them to learn is not that they could have everything they wanted. It's that you have what you need. And we have to learn contentment. We don't always have to be asking for something else. The little ways that I teach them is being practical with money. That's a very simple thing. It's not that I don't have the funds or the ability to not worry about certain things, but what I'm teaching them is how to think through purchasing things, or if do you really need that, or can you buy it at a different time, or because again, it's learning sometimes delayed gratification.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's a pretty big thing because they have to learn that there's a better time, or maybe I need to save my money for a longer or for a different thing, or even though this nice shiny thing is right in front of me. So, yeah.
I love you said tonight that gratitude is a choice and not a feeling. And I think as parents, sometimes we have to make that choice for our kids, like, hey, we are going to be grateful for what we have. Even though you aren't feeling grateful, like we are going to choose today to be grateful for what we have. Yeah. Another thing that you said tonight was also that comparison can be the thief of gratitude. And even what you were just talking about with those decisions, you shared a great story about your kiddo with a phone. Could you share that story?
Yeah. So, my oldest son has a phone, and he has had my hand-me-down phone for a long, long time. And he, for the last year, at least, at minimum a year, he has had the constant point of telling me that he is the only student, the only kid in the high school that has an iPhone 8, that it is so old and doesn't hardly keep a battery, and it's so slow. And I don't want to say I found joy. I didn't, but I did smile at him every time. And I would say, I know, it's okay. It builds character. And he would be like, he had no comeback, right? What do you say to that, right? So then the next couple of days, Mom, be like, it's okay. It's
Yeah.
building your character.
Mm-hmm.
I think when we eventually he did get one, we were again. It's waiting for the right time and he got an upgrade. And I will tell you the gratitude that he expressed
Wow.
when he got an upgraded phone. Again, what is it's teaching? It's delayed gratification. It's actually having him. He didn't need. Yes, he probably had the oldest phone in the high school. I'm not going to deny that, but I wanted him to learn that it's okay. It's okay not to have the absolute best thing. He doesn't have to have that. I don't care if every other student has the newest phone. It's okay.
Yeah.
You're okay.
I love that. And I think as a parent, sometimes we need that reminder just from another parent. Like, it's okay if your kid doesn't have the latest and greatest. Like, they really are fine.
They're fine.
They're fine.
It's okay to say no.
Yeah.
You know.
I was going to say, are you
to
saying
say
it's
no.
okay as a parent to say no? You don't have to give your kid everything they ask for?
But then what do you do when your kid says no back to you? You just have this no. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, you're right. Like the difference of our wants versus our needs. And as a young kid, even as parents, like it can be so easy to think that things are needs that aren't needs.
Well, absolutely. Yeah. And helping them they have to learn to see it because we're not always going to be there. That's the reality of parenting, right?
Yep.
Like we're teaching them the things that we're teaching them so that they can on their own figure these things out. One of the things that I think we sometimes miss, I don't want to maybe make it too big of a blanket there, but teaching our kids how to think critically is a really important piece because, again, we're not always going to be there. There's going to be a place and a time where they have to critically think through something. And it's not feeding them answers, it's asking them questions.
True.
Because if we can help them and ask them questions so they can come to the conclusion, it's also teaching them how to ask themselves questions and figure it out down the road. Because someday they're going to have to be able to do that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's so true.
Yeah, I've heard the concept before of that you shouldn't be protecting your kids from the world. You should be teaching them how to walk through it.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big piece with gratitude too. It's a big thing that you have to prepare your kids for because especially with the concept of things aren't always going to be great. They aren't always going to be sunshine and rainbows, and there's going to be hard times that come. And as a parent, you want to be doing things now that are preparing your kids for when they're out of the house, when they're on their own and they face trials and struggles and hardships, how to have gratitude in those moments. Do you have any thoughts about
absolutely.
that, Amber?
You know, it's funny as you're saying that, I was thinking back on my own. I remember very clearly some of the things that my parents walked through, difficult trials, and how I watched them go through them. They were very real. They were very real. They didn't try to protect me from, we're fine. We're good. We're going to shed our tears behind our closed doors. They were real. And because they were real and they showed me the pain, they showed me things that they were walking through. I was also able to see them walk through it with their faith. And to, what we can go through storms. We will go through storms, but that doesn't mean our faith. We are on solid ground. And to watch your parents go through challenges and see them firmly planted. There's a sign I have in my basement that says, I may bend, but I will not break. And I think there's a sense of, I'm going to sway in the wind. I'm going to sway in the storm. I get that. Our worlds sometimes are shaken, but that doesn't change where my feet are planted. And they showed me that. They modeled that for me. I want to do the same thing for my boys. I don't want to pretend that everything's perfect when everything's not perfect. But at the same time, I also want to always show them Jesus. I always want them to know that my feet are firmly planted. And if I can model that again, I want them to be able to do the same thing.
Yeah. It's that unwavering hope. We can walk through difficult trials. We can I love at the end you're saying, I want to be a mom who is uncertain sometimes, but you're always certain in Jesus.
Exactly.
Right? Like our circumstances can be uncertain, even our stance, but we are always standing on Jesus. And I think what leads to that grateful heart for our kids is helping them notice that critical thinking. Like, well, where do you see God? Like, how has God been at work? How is he with us in this?
Yes.
It's that verse from James that says, count it all joy when you face trials of many kinds, because as you face that, it's going to build endurance, and that endurance is going to test your faith until you become pure, right?
Yes.
Like, it's just leading us through that. And so as we face trials and our kids are walking through trials, and not the silly things, like a phone or the greatest squishy ever. I mean, I don't know. But, as we face those real trials, helping our kids learn that this is building your endurance and it is building our faith, and we're going to see God more and more in the things that we're facing.
We have to realize that what our kids are up against is the opposite of that. The world wants to teach them that they're entitled to an easy life. They're entitled to, if it doesn't feel good, why should you do it? If it's hard, why do it? It should be easy and it should be fun. And yet what the scripture you just shared is the absolute opposite of that.
True.
We should find joy in our trials. We should embrace them and say, you know what, there's good that comes from that because it's building my character. So going in complete opposition of what they're being fed from from so many angles is just something we have to be aware of, so that we will, not every time, but take every opportunity that God gives us to teach them that truth, so it is firmly planted in their hearts. Yeah.
It's so good. I love it. So the what is it that we call it? The family challenge.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the family challenge for this month is to keep, what is it? A thankfulness?
A thankful list.
A thankful list.
Yeah.
So that's a practical next step for parents out there to start doing that with your kids every day. Take a moment, say, okay, what can we be thankful for today? And
the first 5 to 10 days are going to be so easy. Like, oh, I'm grateful that I have my bed. I'm grateful that you are here, But man, what a great opportunity to start teaching our kids, to look for God moments in how God's working in situations by day 16, where it's what are you grateful for? I don't want something that you've already listed. What's something new that you're grateful for? I'm grateful that there was someone I could sit with at lunch today that didn't have anyone else to sit by. We can help them teach how to look for things.
Looking for, yeah, absolutely.
That's great. That's great. So take that to heart, parents. Our final question, Amber, as we wrap things up, is what we like to ask all of our guests here on the podcast to help bring some encouragement to parents. So speaking to the parents who are listening right now, what is something that you've learned in parenting that you wish you would have known sooner? What advice, what encouragement can you bring to those parents listening?
Well, I'm going to answer it maybe just a little differently. It's what came to mind when you said it, but it's what I would probably do differently, I guess.
Sure.
Right? So one thing I naively thought when I raised my two boys was that I would raise them the same. This was my parenting. This is what I believed in parenting, and this is how you do it as best as I knew. Right?
Yeah.
And it wasn't until Elijah was probably, it took me a while to figure this out. I was 4 or 5 when it dawned on me, I can't parent him the same way I parented Isaac. And I'm going to have to make shifts that even Isaac noticed. The kind of, wait a second.
Yeah.
You didn't do that with me. You would never have allowed me to do that. It wasn't a, he did something wrong type thing. It was a choice type thing. And it was because of how God has made Elijah is so different than how God has made Isaac. And to understand and to pull back kind of but this is how I do it. And now I have to figure out how to parent Elijah in the way that God has shaped him and formed him to help him be the person that he wants to be. And it's going to be different than Isaac. And so if I wish I would have known that when he was even younger, because I don't think I would have even, Elijah, I mean, we struggled. I mean, he's a strong-willed little one. And so we had our battles. I think I would have probably even faced those battles differently had I been aware that I've got to parent differently. And I truly didn't know any better. I didn't know that, it's okay. It's okay to parent your kids differently based on who they are, on how God has made them.
Yeah.
I love that.
Different, but
So good.
That's great.
Amber, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Grateful for you. We're going to give a shout out. Grateful for you sharing with all of our awesome parents. And parents, we're grateful for you.
Yes.
We're so grateful that you are stepping up to the mission God's given you to raise your kids to know and love God. And we just want to encourage you and say, you're doing great. Keep it up. We're going to raise grateful kids together. And way to go.
We'll see you on the next episode.
Bye.